Welcome to Reader's Bliss. So, this is the episode 3 of Peer-e-Kamil in English. So, let's start without wasting our time. Ashchal was silent. We know our relationship. If you think my practical approach to our relationship shows a lack of interest or indifference, then I cannot do much about it. That I am here with you means that I value this relationship. Otherwise, I would not be sitting here having tea with a stranger. She paused a moment, then continued. And whether you coming here or not makes any difference to me. The answer is that we are both very busy people. We are the products of a modern age. I am no heat who waits upon you with delicacies while you play the flute, nor are you Ranja who will indulge me for hours. The truth is that it really makes no difference whether or not we meet or talk. Our relationship as it is today will continue, or do you feel it will change? Ashad's brow did not sweat. It was simply because it was the month of December. There was a difference of 8 years in their ages, but for the first time Asjad felt it was not 8 but 18. And she was the older one. Just 2 weeks ago she had turned 19, but to him it seemed as if she had raced overnight from teenage to middle age, and he had regressed to his preteens. She sat across him, legs crossed and eyes fixed on his face, impassively waiting for his response. Asjad looked at the engagement ring on her finger and cleared his throat. You're right. I just thought we should chat more because it would help develop some understanding between us. Asjad, I know and understand you very well. I am disappointed to learn that you think we still need to develop an understanding between us. I thought there already was a good deal of understanding. Asjad had to accept that it wasn't his day. And if you think that talking about business and autonomy will improve the situation, then very well, we will do that in the future. There was an element of disinterest in Amama's tone. You're not happy with what I said. Why should I be unhappy? This embarrassed him further. Perhaps I said the wrong thing. Not perhaps, but certainly I said the wrong thing. He repeated the last phrase with emphasis. You know how important this relationship is for me. I have many dreams for the future. He took a deep breath. She continued to stare expressionless at the creeper along the wall. Perhaps that is why I am so sensitive about it. I have no fears about us. This engagement took place with our consent. His gaze was fixed on her and he spoke with emotion, but suddenly he felt once more that she was not there, that he was talking to himself. The music from the annex behind the huge bungalow could be heard on the lawn in front of the house. Anyone would have been amazed at the level of endurance of those inside, but one look inside and one would know the reason behind this level of endurance. The room was full of swirling smoke and a strange smell. Empty cartons of food from a popular restaurant, disposable plates and spoons, bottles of soft drinks, and scarps of leftovers were strewn all over the carpet, which was stained by ketchup. The 7 boys in the room were sprawled on the carpet. Empty beer cans were scattered around. This was not all. They had been entertaining themselves with drugs too. This was the third time in the last 2 months that the boys gathered here for an adventure of this kind. So far, they had experimented with 4 different drugs. The first time it was a drug that one of them had found in his father's closet. The next time it was a drug which schoolmate had bought from a club in Islamabad. Then it was something acquired from an Afghan in a Rawalpindi market. Every time they had combined drugs with alcohol, procuring which was no problem. Each time this happened, 6 of the 7 boys ended up completely stoned. Even now, it was only the seventh boy who was in his senses. His face was covered with acne, and he was dressed in a dark blue shirt with its collar turned up Elvis Presley style. and hideous green jeans which had Madonna's face adoring each knee. He opened his eyes to glance at others around him. His eyes were red, but not because he was in a stupor like them. Little later, he straightened up and shaking the remaining drug from the container out in a cone. He pulled out a straw and began sniffing it. Then he threw away the straw and taking some of the drug on a fingertip, tasted it very cautionlessly. Almost instantly, he spat it out. The stuff was of excellent quality, but his expression showed that he had not enjoyed the experience. He swallowed some beer as if to clear the taste of the drug from his mouth. The other boys lay around the carpet, totally intoxicated and unaware of themselves. He looked at them thoughtfully, and as he drank from the beer can, his eyes, though swollen, were bright enough. The drug had not knocked him out fully. This had happened the last 3 times too. Through his friend has been knocked senseless after taking drugs. The effect on him was not so pronounced. The first 2 times he had left them in their stupor and had driven home late in the night. This time too he wanted to get away. The door of the drugs in the room repulsed him. He stumbled as he tried to stand up. He straightened up and, picking his key and wallet off the door, he turned off the stereo. He looked around the room as if trying to remember something. Then he turned towards the door and, sitting down again, put on his joggers, tying their laces around his ankles. Finally, unlocking the door, he went out into the dark corridor. Groping his way, he went past the main door out onto the lawn. As he was coming down the stairs, he felt his nose was running, and when he touched his upper lip, he felt a sticky liquid on his hand. He switched on the light in the entrance and saw blood on his fingertips. Reaching into his pocket for his handkerchief, he wiped the blood off his fingers and nose. There was a strange, sharp sensation in his throat which he tried to clear, but he felt the suffocating. He took a few deep breaths to ease the construction and spat 2 or 3 times. Suddenly, he felt a tingling in his nose. He doubled over as blood began gushing out of his nose, pouring down the marble stairs like a stream. The prize distribution ceremony was underway. The golf club. Salar Sikandar was to receive the first prize in the under 16 competition for his 7 under par score. Uploading when Salar's name was called out, Sikandar Usman thought he would have to do something about the cabinet where the trophies were displayed. The trophies and shields Salar would bring home this year would be as many as he had in the past years. All of Sikandar's children excelled in their studies, but Salar was different from the rest. In winning awards, he was far ahead of them. It was not just difficult to beat this boy who had an IQ score of 150, it was impossible. Clapping proudly, Sikandar turned to his wife and whispered, "This is Salar's 13th trophy and 14th one. This year, you keep a record of everything, don't you?" she replied, smiling at her husband, whose gaze was fixed on Salar as he received the trophy from the chief guest. "Only for golf, and you know the reason very well. I bet then even if Salar had been playing this tournament with professional players, he would still have won the trophy," he claimed proudly. Salar was shaking hands with the other winners seated around him. Sikandar's wife was not surprised by his claim about Salar. She knew that it was not an expression of parental sentiment, it was the truth. Salar was indeed extraordinary. She recalled when he had played 18 holes at this course with her brother Zubair for the first time. The way he had bought a ball that had accidentally fallen into the rough out onto the green was a display of expertise. Zubair was amazed. "I can't believe it." He had repeated the statement endlessly till the end of the game. If the shot from the rough had amazed Zubair, then Salar's putters had floored him. As the ball rolled towards the hole, he leaned against his club and turned around the gorge the distance between Salar and his target. Shaking his head in disbelief, he looked at Salar. Salar Sahib is not playing well today, muttered the caddy, standing by the golf cart behind Zubair, who turned around in surprise. So he's not playing well. He looked at the caddy. Was this a joke? Yes, sir, otherwise the ball would not have gone into the rough. The caddy said, "You have played here today for the first time, but Salar Sahib has been playing here for the last 3 years. That's why I say he's not playing well," he added. Zubair looked at his sister, who was smiling beginnerly. "Next time I'll be fully prepared when I come here, and I also be selected for the side of the game." Zubair was somewhat miffed as they walked across toward Salar. "Any time, any place," she confidently challenged her brother on his son's behalf. "I want to invite you to Karachi this weekend, with all expense paid," Zubair said casually as he approached Salar. "Why? To play on my behalf against the president of the Karachi Chamber of Commerce. I lost the election to him, but if he loses a golf match, and that to a child, he'll have a heart attack, so let's settle the score." Salar's mother laughed at her brother's word, but a frown seized Salar brow. "Child," he repeated with the emphasis, the only objectionable word in Zubair's comment. "Uncle, I think I'll have to play another 18 holes against you tomorrow." Asjad opened the door and entered his mother's room. "Ammi, I need to discuss something important with you." "Yes, what is it?" Asjad sat down on the sofa. "Have you been to Hashim's uncle lately?" "No. Is there anything special?" "Imama is over for this weekend." "Very well. We'll go this evening. Have you been there?" Shakila smiled at him. "Yes." "How is she?" "She's come after a long time," Shakila remarked. "Yes, after 2 months." Shakila sensed Asjad was upset. "Is there a problem?" "Ammi, I find Imama a little changed," Asjad said with a sigh. "Changed? What do you mean?" "I cannot explain what I mean. It's just that her attitude towards me is rather strange." Asjad shrugged his shoulders. "Today she took offense to something quite minor. She's not the way she was before. I am not able to figure out the reason for this change." "It's your imagination, Asjad. Why would her attitude change? You are thinking too emotionally." "No, Ammi. Initially, I thought I was being oversensitive, but after today, I don't think I am imagining things. She treats me in a very offhand manner." "What do you think is the reason for this change in her attitude?" she asked as she put the brush back on the table. "I have no idea." "Did you ask her?" "Not just once, but several times. And, like you, she always says that I am mistaken." She shrugged again. "Sometimes she says it because of her studies. Sometimes she says it is because she has matured now. It's not so far fetched, perhaps that is the reason," Shakila replied pensively. "Ammi, it's not a question of her becoming serious. I think she's moving away from me," said Asjad. "You're belling silly." "Asjad, I don't believe there's any such issue. You have both known each other since childhood. You know your temperaments." Shakila felt her son's fears were meaningless. "Obviously, changes do take place as the years pass. You're no longer children. Stop worrying over trivialities." She tried to reason with her son. "In any case, Hashim Bhai wants the two of you to get married next year. Imama can continue and complete her education afterwards. He wants to fulfill her responsibility," Shakila revealed. "When did he say this?" Shakila was taken by surprise. "Many times. In fact, I think they may have started the preparations." Asjad breathed a sigh of relief. "Maybe that is why Imama is agitated." "Yes, possibly. The wedding should take place next year," Asjad replied with some satisfaction. He was a tall, thin lad of 16 or 17. He had a fuzzy growth on his face and an innocent look about him. He was dressed in sports short and a big baggy shirt, and had a cotton socks and joggers. He was in the middle of a crowded road on a heavy duty motorcycle which he was racing recklessly, without any consideration of for traffic lights or oncoming traffic. Zigzagging his bike through traffic, he periodically lifted both his feet off the pedals, performing whiles. Then, without breaking speed, he turned and changed lanes, going the wrong way through the oncoming traffic. Suddenly, he braked with a sharp screech. He raised his hands from the handlebars, and the motorcycle slammed full speed into an approaching car. He was flung into the air and thrown down. He had no idea of what had happened. His mind plunged into a dark abyss. The boys stood behind the rostrums on the stage, facing each other. They were both canvassing for the post of head boy, and this was part of the election program. One rostrum had a poster saying vote for Salar pasted on it, while the other had a poster of the other candidate, Faizan. At this point, Faizan was telling his audience what would he do for them if elected. Salar watched him intently. Faizan was the best orator in the school and was impressing the boys with his performance in a clipped British accent which was so popular. The excellent sound system carried his voice very clearly, and there was pin drop silence in the hall, which was sporadically broken by the thunderous applause of his supporters. When Faizan finished half an hour later, the clapping and whistling carried on for several minutes. Salar Sikandar also joined the applause. Faizan looked around triumphantly and seeing Salar clapping. He nodded in appreciation. As Faizan knew well, Salar was not easy opponent. The compere called Salar to begin his speech. To a roar of applause, Salar began. Good morning, friends. He paused and then continued. Faizan Akbar is certainly an asset to our school as an orator. Neither I nor anyone else can compete with him. He stopped again and looked at Faizan, who looked around with a proud smile. But the rest of Salar's sentence wiped the smile of his face. If it were only a matter of spinning yarns, sounds of giggling filled the hall. Salar maintained a serious attitude. But there's a great difference between an orator and a head boy. An orator has to speak while a head boy has to work. The hall yawned with the applause of Salar's supporters. I do not have the eloquence of Faizan Akbar. He continued, I have my name and my record to speak for me. I don't need a stream of words where just a few would do. He stopped again. Trust me and vote for me. He thanked the audience and switched off the mic. Thunderous applause filled the air. Salar had spoken for 1 minute and 40 seconds in his typical measured style and calculated words, and in that brief time he had overturned Faizan's ambitions. After his preliminary introduction, there was a question and answer session. Salar responded in customary brief manners. His longest response was not more than 4 sentences. On the other hand, Faizan's shortest response was not less than 4 sentences. Faizan's eloquence and way with words, which were his strength, now appeared bombastic compared to Salar's short and sharp responses on stage, and Faizan was all too aware of this. If Salar gave a one line reply to a question, Faizan, out of sheer habit, went on with a monologue. Whatever Salar had said about Faizan seemed to be proving true to the audience that an orator can only speak, not act. Why should Salar Sikandar be the head boy? Came a question. Because you should elect the best person for the job, he replied. Wouldn't you call this arrogance? Came the objection. No, if it is confidence and awareness. The objection was refuted. What is the difference between arrogance and confidence? Another pointed query arose. The same as the difference between Faizan Akbar and Salar Sikandar. He replied in a serious tone. What difference will it make if you are not appointed boyhead? It will make a difference to you, not to me. How? If the best person is not appointed as the leader, if it affects the community, not the best person. Again, you are referring to yourself as the best person. Once again, there was an objection. Is there anyone in this hall who would equate himself with someone bad? Perhaps there is. Then I would like to meet him. Sounds of amusement rose from the audience. Tell us about the changes Salar Sikandar will bring about as head boy. Changes will not talked about, they are demonstrated, and I cannot do this before I become a head boy. A few more questions were asked and answered, and then they compared. Salar for the last question. A Sri Lankan boy stood up with a naughty smile. If you answer this question of mine, then I will and my entire group will vote for you. Salar smiled. Before I reply, I would like to know how many people are there in your group. 6, the boy replied. Salar nodded an assist and asked, okay, what's your question? You have to calculate and tell me what if 952852 is added to 267895 and then 39999 is subtracted from the total and 929292 is added to the sum. He reads slowly from a paper. Then his figure is multiplied by 6 and divided by 2 and 492359 is added to the final figure. What would be one fourth of it? The boy could barely complete his words. Then Salar responds to this. Silly. Question came with lightning speed. 2035618.2. The boy glanced at the paper in his hand and shaking his head in disbelief began clapping. Faizan Akbar at the point felt that he was merely an actor. The hall was filled with applause. Faizan saw the entire program as nothing more than a joke. An hour later, coming down the stage ahead of Salar, Faizan knew that he had lost the competition to him even before it had begun. He had never felt as envious of this 150 IQ scores as he did now. So this episode ends here. Meet you in the next episode. Allah Hafiz.